Have you ever been out in the woods at night, standing just on the edge of the tree line, and suddenly you feel this inexplicable heavy sense of dread?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like the hairs on your arms stand up, your heart just starts hammering against your ribs, and your primitive brain is basically screaming at you that you are being watched by something you cannot see.
Right. I mean, scientists tell us it's an evolutionary response, a biological alarm bell hardwired into our DNA from a time when we weren't exactly the top of the food chain.
Exactly. You feel that chill, and what do you actually do? You shake it off, you let out a nervous laugh, you tell yourself it's just, I don't know, a raccoon rustling in the brush.
Or the wind playing tricks on your peripheral vision.
Yeah. You retreat back into the safety of your well-lit home, you lock the deadbolt, and you convince yourself that the monsters in the dark aren't real.
Yeah.
But we're taking a deep dive today into a massive cache of intelligence files, military intercepts, and whistleblower testimonies that are going to ask you to consider something deeply, deeply unsettling.
Right. What if your instincts in those dark woods are absolutely right?
Yes. What if the safety of our normal everyday world is literally nothing but a carefully constructed, heavily guarded illusion?
It is. It really is the ultimate cognitive dissonance. I mean, we wake up, we commute, we pay our taxes, we argue over terrestrial politics, right? All while entirely unaware of the tectonic cosmic shifts happening literally right beneath our feet.
Beneath our feet.
Yes, we are not alone, and more importantly, we are not in charge.
We are living in an ant farm, sitting directly on top of a fault line. Because today, we are going to expose a visceral, terrifying reality. There is a secret, brutal war raging on Earth. Not in the sky, not in some distant galaxy, but deep underground.
Yeah, the subterranean aspect is key here.
It is. Human shadow governments aren't just in passive communication with extraterrestrials. They are actively breeding and utilizing genetically modified human super soldiers to fight an ongoing underground war against non-human entities.
And, to truly comprehend the scale of this hidden conflict, we have to look past the superficial, sanitized UFO sightings you see on the evening news.
The blurry lights in the sky.
Right, the shiny distractions. The real data is buried in the mechanics of government black projects, specifically a highly classified initiative deeply embedded within allied intelligence agencies. And to access that framework, we must examine the life and the highly engineered assassination of the whistleblower who exposed it all.
A man named Max Spiers.
Exactly.
Look, if you're listening to this right now, driving in your car or sitting at your desk, you might be tempted to roll your eyes. You might think, underground alien wars, super soldiers, come on, I get it. It sounds like science fiction.
It's designed to sound like science fiction.
Yes. It's designed that way so you won't look closer. But the forensic evidence we're going to lay out today suggests our entire geopolitical landscape is a theatrical distraction. It's a puppet show. And Max Spiers was one of the strings that snapped.
If we evaluate the sheer volume of corroborating intelligence surrounding his claims, it forces a complete reevaluation of humanity's place in the universe.
It really does.
We are not the apex predators of this planet. We are a resource, a biological commodity. And Max Spiers was drafted into a localized, violent war to manage that resource.
So how does a person even get drafted into a war that officially doesn't exist? I want to jump straight into the mechanics of this because, honestly, it defies everything we understand about human rights.
Well, we begin with Max Spiers himself. He was born in Canterbury, England in 1976. To his family in the outside world, he was just an ordinary child. But his actual reality was fractured from a very young age.
Fracture out.
According to the intelligence dossier and his own highly detailed debriefings, Max was abducted as a young child by covert government forces. He wasn't taken to a regular military base either. He was funneled into a highly classified shadow initiative known as Project Mannequin.
Ugh, Project Mannequin.
Yeah.
They don't even try to hide the cruelty in these project names, do they?
No, they don't.
It implies a total erasure of the soul. Turning a living, breathing kid into an empty plastic vessel.
The nomenclature is grimly accurate, unfortunately. The objective of Project Mannequin wasn't merely combat training. It was fundamental biological and psychological restructuring.
Restructuring a child.
Yes. Max was subjected to severe mind control conditioning. We're talking about advanced trauma-based programming designed to fracture the human psyche into compartmentalized alters.
Basically breaking the mind into pieces so they can control specific parts.
Exactly. But it went way beyond psychology. he detailed being genetically enhanced, molded on a cellular level into an elite asset for this shadow government.
Wait, pause right there. When you say genetically enhanced, what are we actually talking about? Because that term gets thrown around a lot. Are we talking about like steroids or something much darker?
Oh, much darker. The whistleblower data indicates the integration of synthetic biological components and advanced neurochemical alterations.
To do what?
To drastically increase reaction times, suppress pain, and completely eliminate the psychological hesitation to kill. He was literally a living weapon.
That is horrifying.
And the scope of his deployment was beyond anything you'd find in conventional military history. He recounted being deployed to other planets and interdimensional battlefields to fight in skirmishes against hostile, non-human forces.
Okay, stop. This is where the physics of the narrative usually breaks people's brains, and I really want to dig into it because it's terrifying.
Go ahead.
If a kid is abducted from Canterbury, sent off-world or into another dimension to fight in a war for years, how does he just show up back at the dinner table? I mean, how does a shadow organization hide a decade of missing time from a mother?
That is the crucial mechanical question right there, and the answer lies in the concept of dimensional time manipulation.
Time manipulation.
Yes. The sources outline that this shadow government, working in tandem with certain non-human factions, possesses technology that vastly outstrips the standard model of physics taught in universities today. Time, to them, is not a linear arrow. It's a navigable coordinate system.
So you're saying they literally fold space-time?
Yes. When Max or any other abducted asset was taken, they would serve their operational time, sometimes enduring years of brutal alien combat. But before being returned to civilian life, they were subjected to chemical and technological age regression.
I need you to explain the how of that.
Yeah.
You can't just shrink a 30-year-old combat veteran back into a 7-year-old boy.
Well, the intelligence suggests it involves advanced telomere manipulation and cellular reversal.
So they're overwriting the DNA.
They are effectively overwriting the biological clock at a genetic level, yes. But the physical regression is only half the process. The psychological aspect is much more violent.
The memory wipes.
Exactly. Their memories of these years-long deployments are systematically wiped using advanced electromagnetic frequencies targeted directly at the hippocampus. They erase the combat, they erase the trauma, and then, and this is the key part, they insert the asset back into their original timeline at the exact precise moment they were taken.
It's an absolute violation of human consciousness. I want you, the listener, to really think about the sheer psychological torture of that existence.
It's unimaginable.
Imagine living your everyday life as a child. You're going to school, you're learning math, you're playing in the park, but deep in your cellular memory, you are carrying the fragmented, buried trauma of interdimensional battlefield.
Yeah.
It's like waking up from a massive, invasive surgical procedure, walking around your house, but slowly realizing you've been awake the whole time. You felt the scalpel, you just couldn't scream.
That analogy is incredibly precise because the mind-wiping process, despite their advanced technology, is never completely perfect. The human consciousness is incredibly resilient.
It tries to heal itself.
Right. And as Max grew older, the electromagnetic barriers in his mind began to degrade. These suppressed, horrifying memories began to slowly bleed back into his conscious awareness.
What did that look like for him?
He started experiencing visceral flashbacks of non-human entities, underground facilities, and off-world landscapes. Just intrusive, violent imagery that he couldn't explain.
He had to think he was losing his mind.
He did initially, but the bleeding effect revealed something even more dangerous. He realized that beneath the wiped memories, he had been implanted with deep subconscious trigger words.
Linguistic keys.
Yes, keys designed to bypass his conscious mind entirely.
Manchurian Candidate style. A handler says a random phrase on a payphone and you wake up 3 days later with blood on your hands.
Precisely. These triggers were installed to activate him at a moment's notice for domestic assassinations or specialized retrieval operations. He was a sleeper agent hiding in plain sight, completely unaware of his own lethal capabilities until the programming began to fail.
That means he's walking down the street to get groceries, knowing that a single specific sentence spoken by a stranger waiting at the crosswalk could turn him into a biological weapon against his own will.
Yeah.
You literally cannot trust your own brain. No wonder the man suffered from crippling anxiety.
But rather than succumbing to the anxiety, Max weaponized it. As he pieced his shattered memory back together, he realized the horrifying mathematical truth. He was just one of many.
Because the infrastructure for this is massive.
Exactly. If this age regression and time insertion technology exists, and numerous disparate military whistleblowers confirm the exact same mechanics, by the way. How many other missing children were funneled into these black projects? Max didn't just want to heal, he became absolutely determined to expose the geopolitical architecture that allowed this to happen in the first place.
And what he exposed was that he wasn't just fighting random, chaotic alien threats. He was a pawn in a highly structured, decades-old cosmic conflict. A war governed by diplomatic treaties.
Treaties that the public knows absolutely nothing about.
Treaties signed with the blood of human citizens, by our own elected and unelected officials.
Right. And to understand the depth of the betrayal Max uncovered, we really have to examine the historical baseline of this secret war. We have to look at the inception of Majestic 12, or MJ-12, and the foundational agreements they brokered.
Now, most of our listeners probably know the MJ-12 framework, the Truman-era shadow group, designed to basically manage the extraterrestrial issue. But what Max uncovered wasn't just management, it was flat-out collusion.
The core of the intelligence files points to a specific event in 1954. The U.S. government, acting through the shadow elite structure of MJ-12, made a formal, binding pact with an extraterrestrial presence.
This is the Great Treaty.
Categorized in deep intelligence circles as the Great Treaty, yes. The terms of this treaty are so fundamentally treasonous that they had to be buried beneath the highest levels of classification.
Because if the public knew, there would be global riots tomorrow. I mean, lay out the terms for us.
The human elites agreed to a staggering exchange. In return for highly advanced, physics-breaking extraterrestrial technology, they authorized the non-human entities to abduct a specified number of human citizens.
It is the ultimate betrayal. Just, here, take our people, take our children. Just give us the blueprints for your anti-gravity engines.
It was a transaction.
We essentially sold our own species for an upgrade in military hardware. And we have the hard data on this from the intercepted sources. Military whistleblowers confirmed that 25,000 humans were authorized to be taken from the U.S. alone under the initial terms of this treaty.
25,000 people.
25,000 people given to an unknown alien force.
And remember, that number is strictly the United States quota. The global numbers are exponentially higher. Now, in return for looking the other way while these citizens were taken, Majestic 12 was granted the technology to begin creating PLFs.
Program life forms.
Correct. PLFs are synthetic biological androids. They are not robots in the metallic sense. They are flesh and blood alien soldiers, engineered by human scientists in underground laboratories using extraterrestrial genetic blueprints.
So we're growing our own alien soldiers.
Exactly. They were created to fight in these subterranean and off-world skirmishes, essentially acting as cannon fodder for the shadow government.
Hold on, let me connect a terrifying dot here. If we gave these alien factions tens of thousands of human beings just for the technological schematics to build PLFs, what did the aliens do with the people they took?
The accounts regarding the fate of the abductees are genuinely horrific. The humans were utilized as biological raw material for an extensive hybridization program.
Biological raw material. God.
A specific rogue faction of extraterrestrials, commonly identified in the literature as the Greys, were facing severe genetic degradation. They were using human DNA, particularly reproductive material, to genetically engineer a new hybrid species.
So they were trying to fix their own dying biology using ours.
Yes. They were attempting to integrate cybernetics and advanced biomechanics into our biological structure.
So they were farming us.
Essentially, yes. But what MJ-12 quickly realized was that you cannot negotiate in good faith with a technologically superior, desperate force. The rogue alien factions, especially the Greys, routinely violated the terms of the Great Treaty.
Why would they stick to a quota?
Right. They were taking vastly more people than the agreed-upon 25,000. They were keeping abductees permanently rather than returning them, and they were conducting invasive biological experiments that went far beyond the agreed parameters.
They broke the armistice almost immediately. But what's truly wild to me looking at these sources is how this relationship started. Because it didn't begin in like a sterile Pentagon boardroom with generals in tailored suits.
No, it didn't.
The architecture of this shadow government has incredibly dark, esoteric roots.
The intersection of advanced aerospace technology and the occult is heavily documented but rarely discussed in mainstream history.
Exactly. I want to bring up the early pioneers of the U.S. space program. People think we got to the moon entirely on math and slide rules. But the sources point directly to individuals like Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons is fascinating.
This guy wasn't a fringe character. He was the literal founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory back in 1946. JPL. They build the Mars rovers today. But what was Parsons doing behind closed doors?
Parsons is the ultimate case study in this overlap. He was a brilliant rocket scientist, but he was equally dedicated to dark, occult rituals.
He was a disciple of Aleister Crowley.
Yes, he operated extensively out in the Mojave Desert, conducting sex magic operations and complex esoteric rites. His documented belief was that he wasn't just performing rituals, he was establishing direct communication with higher non-human intelligences.
He called them downloads.
Yeah.
He believed he was opening dimensional portals through dark magic to receive the mathematical and chemical formulas for solid-state rocket fuel from off-world entities.
It's astounding.
It proves that this shadow elite hasn't just recently stumbled into this. They have historically utilized the occult as a mechanism to gain interstellar technology. Science and dark magic are the exact same tool to them.
Which brings us to a highly relevant and terrifying modern implication of the Greater Treaty. The intelligence sources state that the treaty signed in 1954 had a strict 70-year duration clause.
So if you do the math, 1954 plus 70 years, that means the Greater Treaty officially expired in 2024.
It did. The armistice is fundamentally broken. The contractual framework that kept the violence largely hidden has entirely dissolved.
So all of this recent news, the massive uptick in military UFO sightings, the Pentagon releasing gun camera footage of Tic Tac crafts, the high-level congressional hearings with intelligence officers swearing under oath about non-human biologics, none of this is a sudden leap in human curiosity.
No, not at all. It is crisis management. It is the chaotic fallout of a broken treaty. The shadow government is desperately trying to control a narrative that has completely spiraled out of their operational capacity.
Because the aliens aren't playing by the rules anymore.
The extraterrestrial factions are no longer abiding by the secrecy clauses, and the resulting skirmishes are bleeding into the public sphere.
And the government's response is psychological warfare against its own people. They use what intelligence agencies call soft disclosure or acclimatization.
Right, slowly dripping the truth.
They flood the culture with alien invasion movies, TV shows, pop culture tropes. They are constantly trying to slowly prepare the human psyche for the shock of contact so we don't completely collapse when the truth drops. And while they do that, the establishment media and state-sponsored skeptics lie straight to our faces to buy more time.
The historical precedent for this obfuscation is staggering. Consider the famous JAL Flight 1628 incident over Alaska in 1986.
Oh, this makes me so angry. For those who don't know, Captain Kenju Terauchi, an incredibly experienced pilot, is flying a massive Boeing 747 cargo plane. He reports two massive, unidentified flying objects tracking his plane, matching his speed perfectly. And then a third object, which he described as twice the size of an aircraft carrier, appears.
Twice the size of an aircraft carrier, and these weren't visual hallucinations.
No.
The objects were painting the aircraft's radar and were simultaneously confirmed by military ground radar installations. It was an undeniable physical security breach of sovereign airspace.
And how did the FAA and the government explain it to the public? They looked the American people in the eye and said, it was just ice crystals.
Ice crystal.
Ice crystals. They actually expected us to believe that a senior pilot, his entire crew, and highly advanced military ground radar systems were all simultaneously confused by frozen water vapor reflecting moonlight. It is a pathetic, insulting lie designed to keep the public comfortably asleep.
And they enforce these lies no matter how absurd they sound, because acknowledging the truth means acknowledging they have entirely lost control of the planet. Because this breakdown in treaties, as Max Spiers knew, didn't just result in radar anomalies.
No, it got physical.
It has resulted in highly violent, bloody skirmishes hidden in the most remote subterranean corners of our world.
So what does a ground war with extraterrestrials actually look like? Because the movies tell us it's massive saucer ships shooting lasers at the White House. But the reality is infinitely more terrifying because it is intimate, it is brutal, and is fought in the dark, deep in the mud. I want to break down the 1970 encounter in Vietnam.
The Vietnam incident is a highly classified encounter involving a U.S. military non-commissioned officer, identified in the intelligence files only as John. In 1970, he was stationed approximately 50 kilometers from the demilitarized zone in South Vietnam.
Deep in the jungle.
The operational environment was dense, oppressive jungle. His squad was out on a routine long-range reconnaissance patrol.
You've got these guys hacking through triple canopy jungle, sweating, exhausted, fully expecting to stumble across a Viet Cong supply depot or a tripwire. Instead, the temperature suddenly drops and they find a tunnel.
A very specific kind of tunnel.
Right, because anyone who knows the Vietnam War knows about the Cu Chi tunnels, narrow, dirt-packed holes dug by hand. This was not that.
Not at all. John described a massive subterranean entrance. It was a perfectly smooth, artificially bored tunnel cutting straight into the solid bedrock of the mountain.
Solid bedrock.
The walls were glassy, possessing massive industrial drill rings, scoring the circumference.
You don't get glassy walls from a standard drill bit. That implies the rock wasn't dug. It was subatomically melted and fused.
Exactly.
It was a piece of hyper-advanced engineering hiding in the middle of a Third World War zone.
And the occupants were certainly not human combatants. As John and his squad cautiously approached the entrance, they were ambushed.
By what?
The entities that emerged from the dark were humanoid creatures standing approximately 3 meters tall.
10 feet tall.
Nearly 10 feet. The squad reported that the entities possessed distinct reptilian features, highly dense, scaly skin, and were wearing what appeared to be hooded green robes or cloaks.
Let's put ourselves in their boots for a second. You are a human soldier. You are armed with a standard-issue M16 rifle designed to fight other humans. And suddenly, a 10-foot-tall reptilian entity steps out of a perfectly circular melted hole in the mountain. The sheer, unfiltered, primal terror of that moment is unimaginable.
Panic is the only response.
The squad panicked. They broke discipline, opened fire, and emptied their entire magazines into the darkness in a desperate, deafening firefight.
And the reports indicate that the small arms fire was largely ineffective against the biological density of the entities. When the smoke finally cleared and the squad stopped firing, the entities had simply vanished back into the depths of the earth.
Stop right there. Are you seriously suggesting that our planet is just hiding 10-foot reptilians in caves? I mean, how does an ecosystem like that exist without us tripping over it every single day?
We don't trip over it because it is vastly deeper and older than we comprehend. If we correlate the Vietnam incident with broader archaeological data, it aligns perfectly with the discoveries of Dr. Heinrich Kusch, a highly respected Austrian archaeologist.
Tell us about Kusch.
Dr. Kusch discovered and documented extensive networks of prehistoric, artificially constructed tunnels stretching right across Europe, dating back over 12,000 years.
12,000 years. Long before the invention of the wheel, someone was boring massive subterranean highways under Europe.
And Kusch's research uncovered something deeply revealing about how human institutions historically dealt with this. He found evidence that during the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church intentionally and systematically sealed off the entrances to these tunnels.
Wait, the church knew about them?
Oh, they knew. They didn't build chapels over them to pray. They built heavily fortified churches and stone structures to physically cap what they literally referred to in their texts as gateways to demons underground.
They were capping ventilation shafts and exit points. The Earth is literally a honeycomb of alien bases. We're just surface dwellers, oblivious tenants, trespassing on the roof of a cosmic military bunker that has existed for millennia.
And this subterranean presence is not ancient history. It is highly active right now. We can look at a massive treaty violation that occurred very recently in Peru in 2023.
This one is insane because it played out on social media before the shadow government could fully scrub it. This is an active war zone.
The 2023 Peru incident provides a terrifying window into the tactical reality of these rogue alien factions. In a remote jungle village in the Amazon basin, the indigenous population found themselves under nightly siege by highly aggressive hovering entities.
The villagers were absolutely terrified. They gave interviews before the military shut them down. They described these things floating out of the dark tree line wearing strange armored suits. And they weren't just observing.
No, it was predatory.
They were actively attacking the locals, literally peeling the skin from their faces in what seemed like crude biological sampling or sheer terror tactics. And what was the official Peruvian government cover-up?
It was ridiculous.
They held a press conference and told the world it was illegal gold miners with jetpacks.
From an investigative standpoint, it is one of the most absurd, logically bankrupt cover stories ever deployed. Jetpack technology is incredibly loud, emitting a deafening roar. They have extremely limited flight times, usually under 10 minutes due to fuel constraints. They emit massive thermal signatures.
Right.
The idea that illegal miners would utilize experimental multi-million-dollar aerospace technology to silently terrorize a remote indigenous village for weeks is laughable.
It's the ice crystals lie updated for the 21st century. But the truth leaked out. A U.S. Special Forces whistleblower came forward with the actual operational debrief. This wasn't a local police matter. A joint U.S.-Peruvian Black Ops strike team was deployed directly into the jungle to engage these entities.
The whistleblower revealed that the human soldiers engaged hovering alien crafts in the dense canopy.
And the tactical details of the close-quarters combat are revealing. The extraterrestrials, identified by the operative as Rogue Greys, did not rely on advanced energy weapons during the immediate firefight. They engaged the human operators with extreme biological force, fighting back with bare, clawed hands.
Their physical strength and speed completely overwhelmed the strike team.
2 human Special Forces operators, some of the most highly trained killers on the planet, were brutally killed in the mud by these things. The strike team eventually managed to neutralize 2 of the alien entities. And immediately, before the local authorities could even process what was happening, unmarked black helicopters descended into the jungle and extracted the alien corpses. The area was completely sanitized.
Which brings up a critical strategic question.
What's that?
If these entities possess the technology to seamlessly bore through mountains, hover silently, and overwhelm special forces, why do they stay underground? Why not just execute a surface takeover?
It's a fair question.
The intelligence suggests that these deep military bases locations, like the infamous Dulce base in New Mexico, serve specific, vital strategic purposes. They allow the extraterrestrials to tap into the planet's geothermal and electromagnetic core, utilizing thermonuclear energy to power their massive dimensional portals.
But more importantly, the subterranean bases provide biological and tactical shielding.
Explain the mechanics of it for the listeners, because it ties into a broader cosmic theory.
The dark forest theory. I love and hate this concept so much because it makes so much terrifying sense.
It really does.
The dark forest theory is a solution to the Fermi paradox, the question of why we don't hear alien radio signals. It postulates that the universe is not a friendly neighborhood. It is a dark forest filled with heavily armed, predatory, and paranoid civilizations. The moment you broadcast your location, you invite your own immediate annihilation by a more advanced, hostile race that views you as a potential future threat. So survival dictates absolute silence.
Exactly. These extraterrestrial factions are hiding. They stay miles beneath the Earth's crust, using our planet as a fortified bunker, a biological resource pool, and an invisible shield against rival, infinitely more dangerous alien factions hunting them in the broader cosmos.
Max Spiers knew all of this. He wasn't guessing. He had the complete, horrifying, panoramic picture of this reality. He knew the terms of the expired Greada Treaty. He knew the locations of the underground reptilian bases. He understood the biological engineering of the PLFs. And he had firsthand knowledge of the occult, dark magic rituals binding the human shadow elite to these entities.
He had the whole puzzle put together.
And in July 2016, Max made a fatal decision. He decided he wasn't going to be a manipulated puppet or a silent super soldier anymore. He was ready to blow the lid off the entire operation.
Which leads us directly into the Warsaw Conspiracy, the final harrowing days of Max Spiers' life. In July 2016, Max traveled to Warsaw, Poland. He was scheduled to be the keynote speaker at a major fringe conference.
He possessed a hard drive full of groundbreaking new intelligence data he explicitly claimed would expose the names and the operational mechanics at the very top of the shadow elite.
But the moment his plane touched down in Poland, the net closed.
He didn't check into a neutral, safe hotel. He was immediately intercepted and moved into an apartment with a woman named Monica Duval.
Duval was publicly described as a science fiction publisher, but her actions aligned perfectly with the profile of an intelligence handler or operative. She zeroed in on him the moment he arrived in a foreign country where he had no support network. Max walked straight into a highly sophisticated psychological trap.
The red flags are blinding. Let's look at the environment she kept him in. Max was highly sensitive to occult energy due to his Project Mannequin programming. And according to his own frantic communications from the apartment, the environment was deeply steeped in dark magic and esoteric warfare.
The psychological warfare protocols utilized by Majestic 12 and their affiliated cults are devastatingly effective. If you want to silence a whistleblower of Max's caliber, you don't just put a bullet in his head in public. That creates a martyr and validates his claims.
Right.
You have to break his mind first. You have to make him appear erratic, paranoid, and suicidal to discredit the data he is about to release.
And they knew exactly how to do it. They utilized these specific, deeply buried trauma triggers they had violently implanted in his subconscious when he was a child. They were pressing the buttons they installed decades ago. You can literally see him unraveling in real time if you look at the digital footprint of his last days.
A prime example is a Skype radio interview he gave while trapped in Warsaw. He is attempting to discuss the intelligence, but he exhibits severe visceral distress on camera.
Mid-sentence, he suddenly claims he is being actively targeted by directed energy weapons.
Yeah.
He grabs his head and states that his face feels like it is literally on fire.
And if you're skeptical, you might say, oh, he was just having a panic attack.
No. Panic attacks cause shortness of breath and a racing heart. They do not cause the sensation of your facial tissue spontaneously combusting. That is the exact physiological symptom of a microwave-directed energy weapon.
Yes.
They operate by heating the water molecules in the dermal layer of the skin. It was a targeted electronic or psychic assault designed to destabilize him while he was broadcasting.
And the terror campaign escalated rapidly behind closed doors. Max managed to make a phone call to his mother back in England. She later testified to the deeply disturbing ambient noise in the background of the call.
It wasn't the sound of Warsaw traffic or a television. She reported hearing the distinct rhythmic sound of a large group of people chanting. They were murmuring low-frequency incantations in what sounded unequivocally like a dark, occult ritual happening in the very next room.
It's the Jack Parsons connection coming full circle. The shadow government and their handlers using the exact same occult practices to manipulate the physical environment, suppress consciousness, and control their assets.
They had him totally surrounded, isolated, and under spiritual siege.
The obvious question anyone would ask is, why didn't he simply walk out the front door and go to the British Embassy?
And the answer is the most tragic part of this entire deep dive. He couldn't. He made a desperate, whispered phone call to his ex-girlfriend, Sarah Adams. He was operating in pure terror. He explicitly told her that they were physically and psychologically preventing him from leaving the apartment.
The combination of his reactivated childhood programming, the constant bombardment from energy weapons, and the suffocating occult environment, he was paralyzed. He was trapped in a ritualistic nightmare, and his mind was buckling.
Surrounded by operatives, his intellect under siege, Max realized the inevitable tactical outcome. He knew he wasn't going to make it out of Warsaw alive. The shadow elite couldn't risk him taking the stage, so he made one final, desperate maneuver to leave a breadcrumb trail for the world to follow. A warning from the grave.
On July 14th, 2016, just 2 days before his death, Max managed to bypass his handlers long enough to send a highly specific text message to his mother. He didn't say he was feeling sick. He didn't say he was tired.
The message read exactly, "Your boy's in trouble. If anything happens to me, investigate."
It is a clear, unequivocal statement from a trained operative that he recognized his life was in imminent, unavoidable danger. And on July 16th, that danger materialized. Max Spiers was found dead on the sofa in Monica Duval's Warsaw apartment.
And the scene of his death, it completely destroys the official narrative. Max didn't just quietly slip away in his sleep from a heart anomaly. When the authorities found him, he had vomited a massive quantity of a thick, anomalous black liquid.
It was pooled around him, staining the furniture.
The physical presence of this black fluid is the critical forensic fulcrum of this entire case. And what followed the discovery of the body was a blatant, highly insulting, and aggressively enforced cover-up by the Polish authorities.
Despite the glaring presence of liters of unidentifiable black sludge expelled from the victim's internal organs, the Polish police hastily ruled the death a standard prescription overdose of Xanax.
That is an aggressive lie. That's like walking into a room, finding a guy struck by lightning, smoking from the ears, and the coroner rules the cause of death as a mild sunburn. It's not lazy police work. It is an active conspiracy.
Because they never tested the black liquid, they didn't even collect it in a vial for evidence. They literally wiped it up and ignored it.
Because they were likely instructed on exactly what it was, and the imperative was to ensure it never reached a forensic laboratory.
So let's theorize. What the hell was that black liquid?
Right, because you do not vomit liters of black sludge from taking too much anxiety medication. It is biologically impossible. The human stomach doesn't produce black tar in response to benzodiazepines. Was it an extraterrestrial biological weapon? Was it the necrotic side effect of a synthetic PLF poison designed to literally melt the victim's internal organs from the inside out so there's no trace of the toxin left?
Given his exposure to black projects, a highly advanced, untraceable synthetic neurotoxin or a programmable nanofluid is the most logical operational conclusion.
It creates a stark, undeniable contrast. between the sterile, official cause of death scribbled on a clipboard and the visceral, horrifying reality of the scene. A man purging an unknown, dark substance while trapped in the apartment of a suspected operative.
But the shadow government doesn't just rely on local police turning a blind eye. To understand how deep and violent this cover-up goes, we have to look at the collateral damage. What happened to the people who actually tried to do their jobs?
The suppression was indeed violently enforced. There was a local Polish police officer who responded to the scene. He recognized the glaring anomalies. He saw the text message, he saw the black fluid, and he bravely demanded to properly inspect Max's body and run toxicological tests on the fluids. He was a threat to the containment protocol.
And what happened to him?
2 days later, this perfectly healthy, active-duty police officer suffered a highly mysterious accident. He was found incapacitated and fell into a severe, unexplained 6-month coma.
But the coma itself wasn't the goal, it was the mechanism. When the officer finally woke up half a year later, his neurological pathways had been devastated. He had lost all of his memory. He couldn't remember the apartment. He couldn't remember Max. He couldn't remember the black liquid.
A completely wiped mind. Exactly the same mechanism. They neutralized the investigator using the exact same Black Project memory-wiping technology they used on Max when he was a child. It's terrifying in its efficiency. But the horrors inflicted on Max Spiers didn't end when his heart stopped beating. The shadow government had to ensure that every single ounce of physical and digital evidence he possessed was erased entirely from the timeline. They had to desecrate his body.
The post-mortem chain of custody is highly suspicious and scientifically indefensible. After his death, standard international procedure dictates an immediate autopsy or prompt repatriation of the remains. Instead, Max's body was held in a Polish medical cooler for 6 unexplained days before finally being shipped back to his grieving family in the UK.
6 days in a state-of-the-art medical cooler. You would fully expect the body to be perfectly preserved for a British autopsy, right?
You would. But when the body arrived in England, it was in a state of advanced, horrific decomposition. The Polish authorities actually sent explicit warnings to the British officials and the family, aggressively demanding they not look at the body, claiming it was simply too traumatic to view.
But his sister defied them. She refused to let him be buried without seeing him. She demanded they open the casket, and what she found inside was monstrous. His face was completely black. The cellular tissue was rapidly degrading.
A highly experienced British pathologist, consulted on the case, noted that the physical state of the body resembled a corpse that had been left outside, exposed to the sun and the elements for 3 solid weeks. It did not mathematically align with the body kept in a temperature-controlled medical cooler for 6 days.
So we must ask the analytical question. Why was the body intentionally allowed, or perhaps even chemically accelerated, to rot?
The most logical conclusion from an intelligence and investigative standpoint is extreme evidence destruction. By allowing the cellular tissue to severely decompose, they effectively destroyed any chemical traces of alien biological agents or exotic synthetic poisons.
It's the ultimate forensic scrubbing. It ensured that the British pathologists couldn't find the microinjection sites. They couldn't analyze the internal hemorrhaging caused by the black liquid. They couldn't determine the true exotic cause of death because the evidence had literally melted away.
And they didn't just scrub his biology, they executed a flawless digital erasure. Max had traveled to Warsaw with a laptop and a cell phone, both containing the highly classified intelligence files he was preparing to present. When those devices were finally returned to his mother, they were completely professionally wiped.
We aren't talking about dragging files to the trash bin. Not a single document, not a single photo, not a single operating file remained. The hard drives were zeroed out to military specifications, likely using a targeted magnetic pulse. And the physical SIM card had been violently ripped out of his phone casing.
Which highlights the absolute laughable absurdity of the official narrative we are fed. We are expected to believe, as a matter of public record, that a man died of an accidental Xanax overdose, and as a direct result of taking a pill, his laptop spontaneously wiped itself to NSA standards, and his SIM card vanished into thin air.
Right. It's insulting to our intelligence.
The intelligence he was about to present in Warsaw, the definitive proof of the MJ-12 treaties, the coordinates of the underground bases, the schematics of the PLFs, was successfully and permanently deleted from the face of the earth.
And while the operatives erased his physical data, the establishment media dutifully stepped in to erase his reputation. Massive mainstream outlets, organizations like the BBC, ran hit pieces trying to smear Max as a paranoid schizophrenic.
They painted him as a delusional drug addict who lost his mind.
Nothing to see here, folks. Just a crazy guy who took too many pills and read too many sci-fi books. It's the exact same Ice Crystals playbook, but this time applied to the character assassination of a dead man.
The sheer scale and coordination of the erasure, the intentional desecration of his body, the military-grade digital wiping, the synchronized media smear campaign, the coma of the investigating Polish officer, it leaves any objective analyst with one undeniable conclusion.
What cut?
You do not expend that level of multinational covert resources to cover up the accidental death of a paranoid schizophrenic. You expend those resources to silence a highly trained soldier who is actively exposing state secrets.
Max Spiers was not a myth maker. He wasn't some guy sitting in his basement stringing red yarn on a corkboard. He was a genetically modified asset. He was drafted as a child into a secret interstellar war, and he was assassinated in action behind enemy lines.
His death, and specifically the ruthless mechanics of the cover-up, the missing hard drive data, the biological anomalies like the black liquid, the aggressive suppression of the local police, this is the absolute undeniable proof.
Yes, it is.
The underground alien bases, the Majestic 12 treaties, the Project Mannequin super soldier programs, they are 100% real. Max Spiers simply knew too much. He possessed the receipts, and the dark forces governing this planet silenced him before he could wake the rest of us up.
Why?
They erased him to keep the ant farm ignorant of the fault line. They need us to keep going to work, paying our taxes, and watching the news, blissfully unaware of the horrors churning beneath the soil. But his final warning survived. If anything happens to me, investigate.
Well, Max, we are investigating. We are staring deep into those dark woods. And I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, deeply chilling thought.
Oh, wait.
We've spent the last hour breaking down the impossible technology this shadow government possesses. The proven ability to abduct children in the dead of night, to fundamentally alter their biology and turn them into enhanced interstellar super soldiers, to manipulate their timeline, age regress their bodies, and completely flawlessly wipe their memories of the trauma. If they had been doing this, refining this science, since the Great Treaty in 1954, how many of the seemingly ordinary people you pass on the street every single day are actually deactivated assets? The barista handing you your morning coffee? The guy sitting next to you in gridlock traffic? The neighbor waving to you across the lawn?
Their conscious minds are completely unaware, but the trauma, the muscle memory, and the subconscious triggers are still there, lying dormant in the dark, waiting for a single word.
That's the terrifying part.
Yeah.
And it leads to the most horrifying question of all. If the memory wipes are so seamless that the victims themselves don't even know, how do you know with absolute 100% certainty that you haven't been wiped?
You really don't.
Are your memories really your own? Are you sure you remember every day of your childhood? Or are those memories just the manufactured cover story they implanted in your brain before they shrunk you down and sent you back? You are now deep inside the rabbit hole. Look around you, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, who is really controlling our planet?